Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. We got a great topic for you today. You guys have been asking for a while, so enjoy. What is your best paranormal slash glitch in the Matrix story? Please remember to like, share, say hello, and subscribe. Years ago, standing on a sidewalk waiting to cross the street in Madrid, Spain, my brother walked up to stand next to me, except it wasn't my brother. It was some Spanish guy that was the exact same age as my brother and fully identical to him. Not even doppelganger status, like mirror status. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. My brother was a literal ocean away, and I just stood there, totally gobsmacked. He looked at me and said, "You're American, right?" And I said, "You look just like my brother." He said, "Your brother must be pretty handsome then." And we laughed. We crossed the street and went our separate ways. In late September or early October 2000, my parents had just put in a separate building in behind our house for my recording studio purposes, and just to get away from everyone should I need it. We had bought a Radio Shack intercom system if either of us needed to reach each other when I was out in the studio. One night I was working on music and had headphones on, so I didn't hear my mom calling me into the intercom. I needed a restroom break and grabbed a drink from the fridge, so I walked into the house. As soon as I hit the door, my mom came into the living room angry as hell and proceeded to inform me that if I ever did that again, she'd whip me from then to 2008 and back again. I honestly didn't know what she was talking about, but she didn't believe me. Finally, when I myself got angry and said some choice words or phrases of my own, she realized I had no clue what she was talking about. Turns out, while I was out working in the studio, she heard me screaming for help over and over outside her bedroom windows, where she was located at the time. By the time she checked out her windows and the doors and couldn't see me, she tried to reach me via intercom, which I didn't hear. She was getting herself ready to go looking outside and come knock on the studio door as I walked through the door. She insisted it was my voice, no mistake about it, the screaming and pleading for help outside the house. It wasn't the first time one or more of the family had witnessed strange activity at the house or previous house I grew up in from birth until I was around 11 or 12 years old. But we were both so freaked out by what happened, she watched me from the back door to quickly go out to the studio and make sure all of my equipment was turned off and the studio door was locked, and I ran back as quick as I could back into the house so we could be together just in case that or something worse happened again. I still get chills every time I think about it. More of a glitch in the Matrix story. I really wanted a sewing machine and was kind of short on cash. I did a lot of searching on Amazon and then chose basically the cheapest brother machine available. A few days or a week after I got my machine, the package arrives on my doorstep, and it's a nicer brother sewing machine than the one I ended up buying and addressed to me. But it's from Walmart, and the payment name and address is someone I've never heard of in a state I've never been to. I don't shop at Walmart and never looked at sewing machines on their website, so I tried calling to figure out what happened, but I didn't have the phone number or email of the person who paid for it, so they wouldn't give me any info. To this day, I have no idea who sent it or why, but I returned my cheap model and still have the good one. Thanks, mysterious benefactor. Maybe an anonymous family friend, maybe an incredibly strange coincidence, but either way, hey, new sewing machine. Was camping on my friend's property. They were building a cabin but hadn't finished it, so we were staying in a camper. We were drinking beers and had a fire going. The property was basically just a clearing surrounded by woods. We are sitting there, talking and joking around, when all of a sudden, the woods erupted all around us, all at once. It was like the monkey exhibits at the zoo. If you've ever heard when all the monkeys are screaming in unison, it's loud as shit, and there's multiple sources. The problem is, this was rural Virginia, and there ain't no howler monkeys in the woods that I'm aware of. We were instantly terrified and booked it into the camper. We were so overwhelmed with terror that we literally fell on top of each other trying to get into the camper. My friend who owned the property had bigger balls than we did, and he charged into the woods towards the howling with a flashlight. As soon as he hit the tree line, the noise stopped instantly. He didn't see anything, no animals, no people, nothing. And it wasn't like whatever it was trying to leave the area, and he could hear them escaping. It was instant loud noise, followed by instant silence with no identifiable source. I can't explain what the F it was. People suggested it was foxes, but to explain the sheer quantity and loudness of it would mean that a pack of 20 plus foxes had to sneak up and surround us and erupt in unison. It could have been birds, maybe, because it seemed to come from high up in the trees, but literal howling and screeching? Never heard of a thing like this since. Now, what's interesting is the property my friend's family had bought had quite the history. First off, it was used as an illegal moonshine still for decades. They found all the big casks tucked in the woods, and there was an old as shit rusted pickup used to haul the hooch still up there. Also, there was an old abandoned house on the property that they had demolished not long after buying it. When they first looked in the house, it was clear someone had been squatting there for a while. Old mattresses on the floor, and lots of discarded bottles and whatnot. The worst thing they found? The person had nailed little girl panties to the wall. Definitely not good people had been there at some point. One of my thoughts was that it was the person or persons trying to F with us, basically saying, yeah, you guys are up here, but this is our property type thing. I still don't have an answer all these years later. Years ago, friend dropped her cell phone behind the couch while she was on the phone, and we looked everywhere for it. We took all the cushions out, moved the couch, there wasn't a vent or anything behind it, and never found it. And she had to get a new phone. Her friend she was talking to said the phone just disconnected like when you lose service, LOL. Was at a friend's place, stood up, made sure my reading glasses were in my pocket because I'd like to carry them around there. They were still there. I walked somewhere 2 to 5 meters away and stood for a second, felt a slight tug and checked my pocket. Glasses were gone. Found them on the other side of the room. Everyone in the room was in front of me, so no one would have been there to take them out. Once before crossing a road on a crosswalk, I felt an urge to put the hood of my jacket on. I generally almost never did that as it muffled out all the noises, but due to unknown reasons, I just obliged. Green light, car goes. I cross the road with several other people and get hit by a car pretty bad. The paramedics told me that if I hadn't done that, my scalp would have stayed at the winding shield and the wiper would have definitely penetrated it instead of penetrating the hood. Was with my friend about 70 miles from home at a poker tournament. We traveled separately. He gets a call from his wife telling him that a guy keeps calling her asking for Rita. Her name was Nita, Indian woman. My gran was called Rita, so I joked that I wonder if he was trying to find her instead. I asked my friend what his home telephone number was. It was 334355. Astonished, I told him that's my gran's number was 344355. As it turns out, it was my gran's boyfriend drunkenly trying to call her. The chances that me and my friend would both be standing next to each other some 70 miles away at the exact same time he gets the phone call, that his phone number was almost the same as my gran's, that his gran's boyfriend was calling that number, and that the names of the two women were so similar. Bizarre. In middle school, I once described my dream from the previous night to my friend. It was a very vivid dream that involved the both of us and a third person we both knew. He looked at me with a death stare, told me he had the exact same dream. Same story, same location. At first I thought he was messing with me, but I started asking him to describe things to see if it checked out, and it did. Still kinds of freak me out to this day. Once my mom and I were driving home from hockey practice at night, which I live like an hour away from. I live in the mountains, and hockey is in the nearest city 55 miles. Anyways, we're going through this valley, and suddenly you can see everything clearly throughout the valley. It's not like moonlight bright, like it came out from the clouds or something. It's more like I could make out a person on a hill 200 yards away kind of bright. And it also had a red hue, so this red light just lights up from a distant hill 15 to 25 miles away, and the entire valley is suddenly clear as daylight. My mom and I looked at each other in complete disbelief and confusion. It turned on and off again about 3 times, for about 5 seconds at a time, each time just as bright. To this day, we haven't found any explanation to what happened, and it hasn't happened again. Kinda glitch in the matrix. Found someone on Twitter who had my same first, last name, and also used a profile picture of themselves as a child, and who's the same age. We had a lot in common actually, and followed each other. Now it's fun. But We're also pretty opposite though. I'm single and he's engaged. He lives in the Northwest US and me in the Northeast US. It's like I found a bizarro me. It's wild. It's like my name needs balance in something. I had an older brother who would steal anything that wasn't glued down. So one time when I was like 9 or 10, I thought he had been coming into my room at night. I'd gotten this spy kit as a gift, and one of the things in it was an intruder detector, which had a simple clock attached to a tripwire. So I had the idea one night to prove that he was coming in my room to pilfer whatever by setting up tripwire at my door to have proof that he was coming into my room at night. I woke several hours later when the tripwire tripped loudly because it was pulled with a lot of force. I still remember 30 years later the snapping sound. I sat up startled, thinking I caught my brother sneaking in, but no one was there. A second later, my door slammed shut hard. At that point, I thought it was the wind or something, but saw the tripwire was pulled into the room, just like something had caught it entering the room. I sat up straight as an arrow, very freaked out. A few minutes later, I opened the door to see if anyone else was up, but the whole house was asleep, and it was clear that they had been all night. I left the light on and stayed up the rest of that night. Nothing else weird ever happened though, and I lived there until I was about 21, albeit on and off from 18 to 21. I should note that I don't believe in supernatural anything, but this is the one thing I have no explanation for. Maybe it was your brother and he ran out really quick and then jumped into bed to pretend like he was asleep. Or maybe it was a doppelganger, or who knows, but good to set up booby traps. I do at my house too. My friend and I were on top of a mountain with a bonfire hanging out. It was cold and cloudy, 3 a.m.ish. We were both talking while our other friend was falling asleep. We didn't know where we were going to leave, but we knew soon. But before we thought of it, we were chatting, and then we both suddenly stopped talking, and there was an awkward silence. A little bit before and during this moment, I felt genuine fear and the urge to leave immediately. He did as well. So we quickly packed everything and woke my friend and left, and we went to the 24/7 Jack in the Box. It was strange that we both felt the immediate urge to leave, and we couldn't explain it other than we just needed to leave. Interesting moment in my life. I think this counts as a glitch. For Christmas when I was a kid, I got one of those microphone toys that you could record your voice on. My uncle and I were playing a game where we'd go to separate rooms to record ourselves saying funny stuff, and then the other would play it back. I had recorded myself making fun of him for a picture my dad had recently showed me of them as kids. When he listened to it, I kid you not, that is not what the recording said. The recording was distinctly my voice, saying something about liking one of my teachers. I was in shock and humiliated, and I did not, in fact, like one of my teachers. Guess the universe was in on the fun. Good one, universe. My dad set up a recorder on a weird frequency in his house 6 months after my mom died. He asked out loud, "What's Pradiet's eldest son's name?" And about 5 seconds later, a voice literally says my son's name. No bullshit. My mom was terminal, and we knew she was going to die. We'd accepted it, but they tried all manner of kooky shit to try to prolong her. So my dad hears about this scam machine called a spooky machine that's supposed to heal via frequencies. He believes in it. It kinda gets my mom to believe in it, and me and my siblings are like laughing in private about it. $2,000 piece of shit they got ripped off with. Anyway, about 2 years after she died, my dad goes out of town to a local church where there's a spiritual medium on. Now, bear in mind, we're not known where he lives widely because they moved there to retire. About halfway into the show, the medium looks straight at my dad and says, Your wife passed recently, within the last 3 years?" He nods. "Was her name X?" He nods. "She just wants to say that even though it was in vain, she appreciates that you tried to keep her alive no matter how much other people laughed." Dad cries. Medium then gives it. She says she refused chemotherapy and that you can get rid of that machine now. He looks like, what the guy's name? There's a machine by the side of the bed that you used to try to keep her alive, isn't there? And it's still there? It's not medical equipment. You bought this yourself? She says you can get rid of it now. Now, my rational mind can't come up with an explanation for this. The gathering, he Googled, so it wasn't put out on social media or anything. That could have doxed him. He wasn't on social media anyway. and nobody knew until the week before she died that she was ill because she didn't want anyone to know. The machine was also unknown to anyone except mom and dad, me, and my siblings or partners. How the F did this guy know that stuff? The only two situations I can think of is either he really spoke to my mom or my dad is lying, and my dad wouldn't lie about something like this. Mental. Years ago, my mom went to a pretty, well, at the time, very famous psychic medium. He had a TV show and everything like that, and he brought up something about my dad who passed years ago, and this is what I think. If it gives that person comfort in their grief, it's good, whether you believe it or not. So, yeah, I don't know. This one is kind of a silly one, but my little brother used to have a Wolverine plush that he would take everywhere. One day, we were with our grandparents in their car, and we went to get some ice cream. And when we got back in the car, my little brother put the Wolverine plush in the back to eat his ice cream. When we got back home, we couldn't find it anywhere, and we still talk about it to this day. All the doors were closed already, so it didn't fall out or anything. I'm still genuinely baffled as to what happened to it. Bub. My childhood home had a pretty large old broken down wooden barn shed where we kept yard equipment, tools, and such. It was always a bit spooky, but one time when I was around 10 years old, I was inside the barn and thought I heard a voice call my name. It was unfamiliar, male, gruff. I wasn't sure I even heard anything, but I walked the 100 feet or so back to the house and found my mom. I asked her if she had called me. She said no and asked why. I told her about the voice I thought I heard. She immediately got a scared look on her face, went and found my younger brother and started praying with us, Christian family, obvi, asking God to protect our home and family. After that, I asked my mom what was going on. She said right before I came and told her about the voice, my brother had come to her and said the same thing. Just last week I had a dream, and I saw one of my friends and she looked so unrecognizable in it, so I asked her why she looked so different and unrecognizable. 2 days later, my friend calls me, and I am like, I just had a dream about you, and you were unrecognizable. She goes dead silent on the phone, and she says, I decided to call you because I had a dream about you, and in there you kept asking me why I look different. We're yet to meet to go over details, but that one shook me a little. One that always creeps me out is my cousin's ability to teleport. He's done it a few times. These are the two most notable. We were sitting and playing some co-op Halo at his house. I got up to use the restroom, and he went to grab a soda. The bathroom is at the end of this narrow hallway on one side of the living room, and the kitchen is on the other side of the house. When I turned down the narrow hall, he was standing at the fridge asking if I wanted a drink. When I got to the bathroom and opened the door, he was sitting inside and yelling at me to shut the door. Another time, we were at my place and he got up to go to the bed. I decided to stay up a bit longer and finish the level I was on. When I eventually finish the level and start to turn off the system, he asks from the couch next to me if he can play a bit. The thing is, there's only one door into this room. It is 6 inches from the TV I've been playing on. It has been shut since he left for bed, and he would have had to walk in the front of the TV to get from the door to the other side of the couch. I was absolutely terrified. The guy is 6'2" and weighs 300 pounds. I cannot for the life of me figure out how he keeps appearing in places he could not have gotten without being seen. And, in the first case, he would have had to physically push past me to get there before me.